moment when this magazine kind of solidified the idea of it?
Yeah, so I think Mariah and we are actually only internet friends. We have not met in real life, which is
Ever?
hilarious. Ever.
Shut the front door.
Yes,
So
it
you
is
didn't
true.
even know each other in New York?
We have a lot of mutual friends, but we just didn't quite connect in New York. But so I think Mariah initially reached out to me. She was doing full moon surf sales in Indonesia, and she reached out. And
Was that when we did that, or is that after?
I don't remember.
Yeah, but I was so wanted to go, but I think I was really in the 9-to-5 fashion grind in New York, so I didn't really have a lot of spare time or money at the time. But yeah, so we became friends, just kind of followed each other, chatted here and there. And then, I guess throughout the course of last year, I was just, it was a very transformative year all around, and it really got me thinking about a lot of things. And I've just, for many years, had this kind of growing frustration picking up existing printed surf media and seeing a really, frankly, poor display of diversity and a poor range of opinions and perspectives. And, beautiful images, beautiful photos, beautiful things, but nothing that really challenges that or presents a different perspective, which really from a grassroots level of surfing is what's happening right now. So I actually created a Google survey. I don't know why I was drawn. I just had this I need to do a survey. So I sent it to all of my friends, which were mostly...
That's such a funny approach.
Yeah, kind of weird.
Google Forms is wonderful.
Google Forms,
it's great,
very user-friendly. So I sent this survey to Mariah, and then within 24 hours, I think she got back to me and was like, "Oh, are you thinking of doing a surf magazine? Because I'm in 110%." And I was like, "Wow, okay, amazing." And then we just started chatting from there. And Mariah, what's your take on that?
Yeah, it was so great. I mean, Thembi sent out this Google survey, and I think she had a pretty great idea of what she wanted to do. She had a clear vision, to make a surf magazine that we all wanted to read, that our community would be excited about, and represented surfing as we saw it around us. I think that, if a lot of people in New York or people everywhere in the world, they looked around in the lineup, or they looked around at their friends or at parties, and then they opened up any surf magazine. I mean, it's two different worlds. And the surf magazines didn't represent the stories, the vibe, the people in any way. So that was kind of the gist, is to create a magazine that kind of just told the stories, represented, celebrated the world that many of us, most of us, all of us, that we all live in. And so I've been working on surf media for over 10 years now, on and off. And it's been really hard to just get stories that I loved and that I thought other people would love, about women, underground surfers, any type of a lot of different types of stories. And so I was actually really pretty tired of trying to push stories through. And so when Thembi was like, "Okay, I'm going to make this magazine," I was like, "Great, I will just do anything to make it happen. You're driving the bus. I will push the car." I was just so excited that someone had, because I was tired. I guess I've been going in my one lane, and I was tired. And so I was so excited that someone had the energy and was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So I was just like, "Oh, absolutely."
Well, you also had the Instagram handle, A Chill History of Surf, which had been promoting women's surf history, which I loved. And I think it was, you could see that kind of starting to form, I think, also. You being part of that kind of movement, you can see kind of more and more women starting to realize we have a part in this story too. Mm-hmm. And other people, of course, are starting to realize we all feed into surf history, and it's all been pretty white male dominated, told from their perspective. And it's really frustrating, you know, and you know, I look at, I mean, I have a huge collection of surf magazines, and you know, looking onto your magazine, and then I look back at all of this, and I'm like, it's so crazy and so mind-blowing that they've been missing these awesome stories. And to be frank, like, professional surfers are boring as fuck, you know? Come on, they don't really have much to say, and there's nothing of value a lot of times to what they have to say. And these people that you brought into this magazine bring great value, great stories. You know, I mean, I'm such a huge fan. Like, you have Cher Pendarvis, who, you know, gets highlighted a little bit in Surfer's Journal, and she's done a lot of writing, but
she's a legend.
She's freaking unreal, you know? And I do feel like Surfer was starting to tack in this direction before its demise.
Last issue.
The last
literally.
episode.
I know, we were sad to see that.
Oh, man.
Because it was kind of awesome. Like, it felt like it was starting to make that pivot towards realizing what the surf population is these days.
Just a little too late. The culture has expanded far beyond it, and it could have, I think, gained a wider audience and more traction had it made that transition earlier. But it was a little late to it, and I think by then, you know, COVID and everything else that was going on in publishing, it just...
But, you know, what I'm still kind of amazed by even is, like, Surfer's Journal even, you know, which has been held in such high regard,
the worst
is totally missing the boat on something like this. And I'm reading this and I'm like, this is so much better than everything I've been reading in latest SJ.
Wow.
Latest SJ, they do a whole thing on Shane Besh and Dark Horse. I'm like, oh, you mean the whiny white guy from San Clemente who complained that he wasn't judged properly for his airs in the late 90s and rebelled against the system, who once said, I feel like a black man in South Africa, he once said.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Okay.
It's on Proland,
like
if anyone wants to see.
That's
Derek
like
Hind.
the height of, you know, white male privilege.
Mariah's making like vomiting noise. You know, it's just like crazy. And so when I read this, it's like, finally.
Yeah. And it's so interesting too, like looking back on the way that surf history has been documented through these publications. Obviously, in, you know, up until the social media age, these publications are the gatekeepers. Like the buck stops with them.
Mm-hmm.
And by not giving coverage to surfers who aren't privileged white men mostly, you're not their stories couldn't develop, and they couldn't like gain more money from sponsorship. Like, media before the social media age played such a huge part in the development of these people's careers and their success in life, and just their kind of like well-being and
it
being
trickles
known
down all the way through.
Yeah, exactly.
To
so
the culture.
it feels like this is the time to kind of start rebuilding that, and to it's like telling the back catalog. Like, Mariah is the wealth of knowledge of the history of women, BIPOC, LGBTQ plus surf history. So yeah, it's kind of like we're like telling her back catalog of stories and like just getting them out there.
What I was going to ask, like, there have been other attempts at magazines, particularly, you know, more focused on women and not so much as diverse as Emocean. Have you, like, Mariah, you know, like Wahine magazine and all these, like, what do you think of those? And when you looked at those and then you were working on Emocean, what did you pull from those? Did you pull anything from those, or did you not want to do anything like that?
Yeah, Wahine is super cool, and I don't think I've seen any, if many, physical copies of it. But
I'll loan
what
you.
I've seen yes, please. What I've seen on the internet, I've seen a lot of like stories and screenshots and things like that, and it was it was incredible. It was super fun, super cool, celebrating women, and then definitely you could tell it was run by women, or women had a hand in it, because the way, you know, it was obviously, you know, their stories, and then even just the way the photo shoots are run, it was them in everyday life, it was them shredding, it was kind of a more, you know, just show them and show their lives versus just like, in other surf magazines, it tends to be bathing suit shot, maybe a surf shot, etc. So Heaney was almost a lifestyle magazine in the best sense possible. And so I love that. And then there was a lot to love about the Roxy era, even though it was, it was a marketing campaign from Quicksilver. But there's some things to pick from there. And then I remember years ago, maybe it was when I was a teenager or 20 or something like that, Surfer, I think it was Surfer, put out Salt.
Yeah, I remember that.
A couple issues. And all I remember from it was, it was kind of, it wasn't super exciting to me. I'm not sure about other people. I think there was a couple good articles in there. And then I remember I think it might have been Steph Gilmore put out something saying, well, why do we have to have just our, they felt a little bit like, okay, well, here's your magazine, you have something now. It was kind of, they were pushed to the side, or they need, something about it didn't feel great to her, I believe. And so, I don't know, those are kind of, I think we just went by feeling. I think that I've seen a lot of things and liked some things and hated some others. And then, Thembi had the vision, and it was kind of like just a natural response to the history, the things that, have been really challenging and kind of repressive for women and LGBTQIA and Black and Indigenous people of color. It's been like kind of taking that and just kind of, okay, what would we want? And what would, and moving from feeling a little bit.
Given we are New Yorkers, or you and I are, born and raised, but you guys all spent considerable time here, and we are a New York podcast. I want to kind of big up to New York, but through that, I want to ask you guys, because Mariah, you've spent considerable time in Indonesia, Thembi, you're from Australia, two, places of a lot of surf and surf culture. And your time in New York, how did that kind of influence maybe your vision or your relationship to surfing, especially the culture of it? I feel like there's some really interesting culture that comes out of New York surf culture, and that really challenges what the mainstream vision of the sport and, the hobby is. So what's your relationship to New York? What was your time here like? And how did that maybe feed into the vision for Emocean?
Yeah. Okay, first of all, I'll start off in Australia, which is what we were kind of talking about a little bit before we started recording. But I grew up in Australia, and I did not learn to surf in Australia. Reason being that it generally in that time, it was a very male dominated lineup, very like shreddy shortboard vibe, not very beginner friendly. And just, I think also from that time, as a sidebar, I remember just kind of walking down the street and feeling like, people would like catcall or say something weird. And like, why would you want to put yourself out there in a bikini in the water on a board when you're just learning to surf in an environment like that? So I never really felt that comfortable to continue learning. I know that the environment in Australia has changed a lot now. I was back there recently hanging out in Byron and Noosa, and it was amazing. So I never learned to surf in Australia. Fast forward to living in New York in 2015, and actually moving out to Rockaway Beach for the summer with a group of women who I also kind of worked with. It was funny. We all had these like funny fashion day jobs in the city, and we moved out to Rockaway, had a house there, and every morning we would go like so early at the crack of dawn. We'd all egg each other on to go out there and learn no matter what the conditions. And having that kind of environment really changed everything for me. And, being an adult learner is one of the most embarrassing and difficult things in life. But, you stick with it. And if you have that support group, that's what you really, really need, I think, and people that you feel comfortable around. So fast forward to living in California and noticing the differences between lineups in California and New York. New York has, sorry, New York. Obviously, California has better waves, and I'm a regular
Really?
footer.